shit. That's what I'm talking about. Wait.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Advancement Amplified, AI for IA, a special 5-part pulse check series brought to you by Enrollify. I'm Dan Giroux, a higher education marketing and communications leader focused on elevating the strategic impact of advancement. Advancement is at a pivotal moment, with shifting donor expectations, alumni engagement challenges, financial pressures, and the demand to do more with less. AI has emerged a transformative force. It offers unprecedented opportunity to reshape and amplify how teams connect, strategize, and deliver results. In this series, we'll explore how AI can be integrated without overwhelming staff, balancing efficiency with authentic human connections, and unlocking strategic innovations for the future. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to Advancement Amplified, AI for IA, brought to you by Enrollify. I'm Dan Giroux, your host, and today we're diving into the final episode of this special 5-part series exploring the transformative power of artificial intelligence in the world of advancement. Throughout this series, we've covered everything from practical applications to strategic innovations, and today we look ahead. What does the future hold for AI and alumni and donor engagement? Joining me is Mark Koenig, Chief Innovation Officer at Oregon State University Foundation, who brings deep experience and visionary perspective on this rapidly evolving space. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
With your background, really interested to learn more about machine learning. We've covered a lot of generative AI, autonomous AI in our last episode in particular with Adam Martell. And I know you bring a lot of ideas and experience as relates to the opportunity around more advanced type of AI applications. So with the opportunity becoming really by the day increasingly critical for universities to take advantage of, why is it that you see this moment so pivotal for advancement teams?
Well, it's pivotal not just for advancement teams, but for around the world. Every industry, every organization is seeing the benefits and the practicality of what artificial intelligence / machine learning can do for their organizations. We started this journey over 7 years ago. One of the things that we have in our organization is an entrepreneurship fund, where I have funding that allows us every year for good ideas that pop up for innovation to be able to take advantage of. And back in the day, I had a little bit of money for that, and I invested it in exploring different AI companies, how that was actually having impact on the market. For us early on, it was really about our predictive modeling. We've been doing predictive modeling. I mean, even back when I was at Rice, we did predictive modeling by using a spreadsheet. But, going forward now, we build all kinds of models in-house. And predictive modeling for us was one of the things that we figured we could give to the robots, so to speak, and let them run those models at a more frequent rate. Because a lot of times my analytics team would get the model components and pull it together, and then we'd run it every quarter if we were being good. It might even sometimes be a year or two before we ran those models, like an engagement model or an affinity model or a variety of those. And so for us, it was really a way to it works smarter, not harder, because as you can imagine, our team isn't necessarily very big. So we also have to outsource on occasion. And so I took the same philosophy that we do in our finance department and many organizations do with their finance, where they don't manage their investments. They outsource their chief investment officer. And I was like, well, shouldn't I can't afford a data science team. I know how hard it is to recruit data scientists into advancement when the market is so hot for them. I mean, a data scientist is expensive. And they go really quick. So outsourcing that was really critical for us to begin. But I didn't want to just outsource it. I wanted to be able to outsource and teach my team how to fish. Because I think, at some point, outsourcing gets really expensive to just do outsourcing of everything. So we wanted to bring some of those techniques in-house. And I mentioned that's really important because it's also for professional development of your current staff. And I have an excellent team that really wants to learn new things all the time because they recognize that improves their resume as well. And it benefits us. So, and also, and plus it's, if you're just doing the same thing every day and you have some opportunities to take on some new work, usually people are happy to try some new things and not just do the same thing over and over again. So that's what led us down this path. And I spent a lot of time reaching out to a number of different firms, learning more about what the opportunities were to do some of this work in-house with some guidance.
Great. Well, you mentioned a couple of areas we're going to want to dive into in this episode, but I want to pull it back to having you done a lot of exploration over the past couple of years and talking to both internal and external partners and prospective partners. What are some of the things that excite you most about the potential advancements with technology today for advancement?
Well, the integration of the applications. So at Oregon State University Foundation, in our tech stack, we had at one time, we had the center, a hub and spoke model. So the center of our hub was our CRM at the time, because we had migrated to a new CRM. It was forward-thinking technology. It still is. And then we put best in breed solutions around it, because oftentimes there's not one ring to rule them all. There's usually a solution that does something really well, and you need to tie it to other solutions to make a fabric that works for your approaches to programmatic areas, if it's annual giving or stewardship or different areas. And so you've got this dispersed tech stack. And we were really curious, and this is where it's going to be really exciting, is because the integration is just coming in more and more. Look to things like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics in particular. Dynamics is right now bringing in not just the CRM, but all of your applications that were within Office. And as opposed to having a generative AI in every single application that you use, that you have to go into that application to use it, you can imagine the power of having a unified platform that would allow you to basically take advantage of it in-house models. And for us, a lot of the times we started with predictive models, but now we're solving questions. We're scanning contact reports for sensitivities. We're doing a variety of work, sometimes outsourced, sometimes insourced as well. And then, of course, there's the generative aspect where you have to train and get people to adopt. Right now, I just saw a stat recently in an article that was talking about, even with ChatGPT hitting the market and all of the hoopla and such, only 10% of the people around the world are still using it. So despite this great fanfare, it's maybe not seeing the benefit yet, but it's kind of, and this is something it's not a push button AI where it's just my button, I press my button, but you really have to start thinking about how do you change your workflows? How do you change your work processes, both individually, organizationally, and then that you really start to see the benefit. For example, I get up in the morning, I use Copilot, and Copilot is integrated into the Office suite, and I just ask, hey, what's my calendar look like today? It spits out a really short summarization of, I have too many meetings, 17 meetings some days, and I'm like, okay, this is scary. But then it highlights the ones where I might need to have work prepared, or I might need to come prepared. This is an important meeting. It's super helpful in my day to do that. I can ask it weekly. And you're starting to see that opportunity. For example, we are going to be launching here this year ability to using voice to create a report request. And that report request comes in and the machine analyzes that and then creates the parameters for the reporting.
Mark, could you just give a quick example of what that might look like?
Give me left-handed Fijians that have given $50 to X fund, and plop, there's your list with the requirements and the rules associated. Because, as you know, we all have analytics or reporting teams. And I would say a lot of the reporting teams in higher education advancement are list pullers. They're SQL pullers. Jensen Huang said this well recently, that those jobs are the things that are going to change. So how do those staff start to change what they do? Because that's going to be given to us like within 5 years. And then we're 1 year into that. So we've got 4 years, and I'm already seeing some of that appear. The biggest challenge that we have as organizations right now, this is not moving like a normal, hey, we just rolled out a new CRM and everybody goes through a CRM craze for 10 or 20 years. Generative AI launched. Now we're here. It's leapfrogging the technology. And it's really hard to stay on top of for folks in my seat around the industry right now. And so how do we start to get to not resist, not to get into the game? That's one thing I tell a lot of folks that I talk to. It's not, you can't keep waiting. The longer you wait, the longer you will be behind and you're going to have to catch up. And so start to play start to try a few things, and within requirements and legalities and such to that, I will talk about. I know we're going to cover that later, but there are things you could try and do now. And we have a culture. This occurred through our digital transformation about 4 or 5 years ago, which is, we call it just try it. Nike's in our backyard. And so a lot of times people are resistant to change and such. And sometimes we really have a culture where we want folks to just try some things. Some things work, some things don't work. And we've had a lot of our innovation come out of that.
I think you hit on something important, which is you have different teams, different professionals, different advancement shops, all in various stages of trying it out. But for the most part, I think they're in the very beginning stages of that. So a few of our episodes earlier in the series focused on kind of the more generative AI and workflow type opportunities. But with this episode, we want to dive a little bit deeper into what are those higher impact opportunities. And you've mentioned predictive modeling a few times. And of course, that's not new to the field, but perhaps the way that we are going to do that moving forward will look quite a bit different. Could you help give your vision on that?
Definitely. There's different levels of analytics, and I talk about this. A lot of organizations are at the descriptive level. That's the very first base. That's like, what's my number? Or where's my list? And then you move into predictive modeling, and we're all familiar with scores and ranked lists and a variety of different ways to use that information. Obviously, that means that someone has to take that information and then curate it and then provide it back to someone. We're getting to the point where it's more prescriptive, which prescriptive if this, then that. So let's say some data point occurs in the process of a relationship. Let's say that a potential donor that has a high capacity rating suddenly shows up at an event for the first time. Well, do you want to wait? Traditional model would be, we might not even know this, or later on you might get the profile. Being a researcher, we'd always provide the profile to the development officer. It'd be the best prospect ever, and it would be on the desk here still 6 months later. This prescriptive approach allows us to give them just-in-time information that allows them to move quickly to take advantage of that. Because a lot of times in the past, our information became stale very quick. And that ultimately leads us to the fourth area, which is real-time analytics. And that's, we're really moving quickly there. I don't think we'll need to, we'll get to there. But right now, that prescriptive is really where you want to be, because that's going to help you start to automate processes as well. So one of the tools we built, which is fairly, I wouldn't say it's using machine learning, but what it's doing is taking the vast data set that we have for a development officer. Every morning they come in, they get an alert that tells them everyone that's in their portfolio that's made a gift, everyone that has signed up for an event, came to an event, a variety of other indicators, and including privacy and preference. They opted out of communications. So and I'll speak more to this in a minute, which is the Oregon Consumer Privacy Act, which is very similar to GDPR in nature. And data is going to become very important, how we use said data, all of that. And we have to build a platform that is allowing us to manage not just their privacy, but their preference, because I see it as two sides of the same coin. You don't want people to opt out. You want people to say, I really just want X, Y, and Z, and not the 4,000 things that a university campus being $1 billion industry provides.
By your estimation, and I realize this could be somewhat of a wild guess on your part, but do your best. What percentage of higher education advancement shops have reached a point of sophistication where they're able to provide that level of daily individualized gift officer reporting as you've described as happening at OSU Foundation?
It's a good question. There are a few applications that do this. Not at the scale, because this allows us, again, with that data fabric, it doesn't mean it just comes to this one application. I'm pulling this data in from a variety of applications, feeding it to a centralized Azure warehouse, and then that allows us to spin that data out a lot quicker. Just like in privacy and preference, again, all of those permutations you could think of as somebody wanting XYZ QRS and not wanting 28 other things. You couldn't, as a report runner, pull that report with any accuracy to give it to someone without making mistakes right and left. And so that's one really big area that we see a lot of opportunity.
In building a sophisticated data and technology ecosystem for advancement, I'm sure you work in close collaboration with other IT and technology peers from across the institution. Could you talk about those relationships and how do you collaborate and what that looks like for OSU Foundation?
Yes, definitely. It's a little different here at the OSU Foundation. We are a separate 501c3 that supports the institution, but is a separate entity from the university. Through our memorandum of understanding with the university, we manage the alumni and donor database. And so we do have to provide the university lists on their alumni and constituents so they can communicate with them. Now, they're not beholden to the OCPA because they're exempt, but we as a private foundation are. So obviously I do work in tandem with our CIO, Andrea Bollinger, and am a part of her teams, but we are still separate entity. I have my separate servers. All of our, for example, our emails are .org, not .edus. So we're on separate systems to maintain donor privacy and other reasons. There's a plus and a negative to it. I don't have the power. I have a small yet mighty team, as I like to call it sometimes. But it also helps me be more entrepreneurial and be able to do things like the entrepreneurship fund in my own organization and such. So it has both its pluses and negatives, but we basically run a lot of our own technology.
I was encouraged to hear you just say the entrepreneurial aspect of your organization, because something that I've put out into the messaging verse is the opportunity for advancement at large to be seen as a more innovative entity within an organizational structure. I think historically it's looked at as slow moving and it takes a lot of time, effort, red tape to go through change management and introduce new and innovative practices. And I don't think that's necessarily the case at a lot of institutions. And I don't think that needs to be the way that it is across our practice. So I put that out there just to see if you have any reactions to that.
I think it's one of our biggest challenges. Sometimes organizations, as I talk to a lot of peers and see how they're structured, I think of the bigs and big institutions. They sometimes struggle to be more entrepreneurial and they get tied up in what is legacy technologies. Higher education is, according to KPMG in 2019, I haven't seen a more recent stat, but I don't believe it's gotten any better. Higher education is at the bottom of the technology adoption barrel of every single industry sector. So it makes me feel a little silly having a chief innovation officer title in the least innovative field, but nonetheless, I think that's one of the big challenges. You're dealing with legacy applications, and I hear it every day. How can I start doing this work that you're doing on my clack two bricks together to make Spark database? And really, the conversation, it's not hard. You have to get away from the application and move to a warehouse. And that warehouse frees your data. You have to free your data. If you can't free your data, you're not going to be able to do this work in these applications.
How much of it do you think is culture?
There's a lot of culture too. Keep in mind, these people have to maintain these legacy environments. And I'm a big proponent. Customization is evil. That means my definition of customization is we just bought this brand new product, and to make it work, we're going to break it day one. Huh? I mean, you should be purchasing technology that is open AI API infrastructure that has an excellent front end customer service type appearance. Like, if you got a gift form, you want that gift form to be the best gift form, not for your internal staff, but for your external people, for your customers. And to have these different traits when you're looking at technology is critical. But that's the problem. A lot of times there's just not that thinking. Product management is becoming a bigger field in technology. I spend a lot of my time not looking at my industry sector. I spend a lot of time looking outside my industry sector to see what the innovations are and working with others. I've had to literally just go out and create these relationships. And there's a few mentors along the way. A gentleman by the name of David Overcash helped us greatly. David actually did the analytics for AT&T back in the day, and the Seattle Seahawks, and Seattle Children's, all of these organizations that are consuming vast amount of data, and he was providing that type of data analytics for them. So we learned a lot from him. We learned a lot from, we went and visited companies that were doing this. We went and visited Zulily. We went and visited Nordstrom's. We were working with a company that was doing social placement ads, because every day it's, you can't go on to Facebook without seeing 23 ads for something. We were there, 8 years ago looking at how they were approaching those problems. And I think that's something that I would highly recommend for the person in my seat, to not be just maintaining the status quo, but constantly iterating. And, if your operation isn't working in an agile framework, that's probably step one, because it's not there. It's a journey, not a destination, as I like to say. It's not load that software, we're done. It's constantly continue to iterate and improve upon everything that you have. Yeah. And that mindset will help you guide your strategies.
Really important takeaways there for our audience, especially senior leaders, the opportunity to innovate and iterate rapidly, right? You want to, if you're going to fail, better to fail fast and learn from it, right? Yep. Before the risk grows larger.
That's technical debt. Technical debt kills us, and we have so much technical debt. We have the United States deficit of technical debt in higher education. It is a lot of systems. I often joke, hey, that system was built 40 years ago. I loved it when we moved to our new CRM. One of the things we did to convince our board we needed to move forward with the new CRM and a modern CRM was we took a brick cell phone, which was when the system came out, our old system. It was a brick cell phone time. Guy with a double button breasted blazer sitting there on the brick cell phone. We actually got a prop, and then we started taping things to it, like the GPS or the notepad or the other pieces that you just didn't have. And so for our old system didn't even have the ability to record an email address. We had to shove it someplace. Data is also another piece that a lot of organizations do not appreciate their data. Data is the lifeblood of any organization. It's particularly important in advancement. Imagine if you're, as a development officer, you showed up and you didn't have your Rolodex on the desk. It's the same thing. You couldn't call anybody. You wouldn't know who to call. You just have this pile of names, and you may not even have the information on them. So you have to take, I borrow this quote too much from Florian Zettelmeyer, who's a marketing professor at Kellogg School of Business. He has a book called Leadership Guide to Data Analytics, and he talks about that data is a strategic priority, and leaders need to start paying attention to it. Imagine what Facebook would be without data. Imagine what Google would be without data. Imagine us without data.
It's sort of the wild, wild west, I think, right now, with a lot of individuals and teams doing exploration, which is great, which is what we want. There are a lot of benefits, of course, but at the same time, you need to do it wisely.
Exactly. I'm a huge proponent of going to the source for the data. So when I started here in 2008, I worked with the senior most marketing professor at Oregon State, the late Dr. Jim McAlexander. And we developed a planning survey on steroids, because universities would always do planning surveys. And the first question you'd ask is, so what's your net worth? And things like that. And they weren't very successful. Dr. Jim had worked in the automobile industry, helping companies like Harley Davidson understand their customer. And it was a marketing concept called brand marketing, and worked for Prius, worked for Jeep, and helping to build out their customer bases. And he took that modeling that he did in the automobile industry and applied it to higher ed. And so we partnered together, and we had been doing a survey for the past, we just redid it. We'd done it 6 times over the course of the last 15 years with a break during COVID. So there was a 3-year break that we didn't do it. But it's a survey that looks at how the alumni feel about their brand, the value of the degree, how they feel like being around their peers, and the institution's leadership. And so it gives us a composite score that's identified on each individual. They are giving us this information. It's clearly stated. It's not serendipitous. We're not scraping this information. We're not going to weird, obtuse. I'm not a fan of pins anymore. Those type of, it's just junk. Wealth indicators are the one area that we still use, and I would even like to get away from those. But when you source the information in an ethical, appropriate way, letting them know how you're doing it, then you're safe. But if you're trying to scrape, and I know a lot of these AI companies are doing this right now, and a couple of them got caught recently in a LinkedIn piece where LinkedIn has pulled back some of their ability to pull that data. And so they were just scraping it. And it's like, nobody wants that. Nobody wants the email appends are the worst. I mean, there's 10% of the information. We're paying big bucks for this. And you get their match.com email. Really? Do you think their alumni letter coming to the match.com email address is going to help them? No.
Well, I know Mark Oregon has some more stringent privacy laws in place than perhaps the rest of the United States. Talk a little bit about that and how that has impacted the work of advancement or the university in general. It's probably forced you to work a lot harder to protect the data.
It's both forced, but I actually take the approach that we are here to, no different than donors give us their money to put into the endowment because they trust that we're going to spend it wisely and manage it appropriately. Why aren't we thinking the same thing for their data? Do you like working with a company that isn't going to appreciate your privacy? Or, Bed Bath, sorry to pick on Bed Bath & Beyond. They maybe still be out of business. But when you would unsubscribe from Bed Bath & Beyond, they would just resend it to you 3 months later because, you must have changed your mind. Well, that's something we can't do anymore. And we also recognize being a $1 billion+ industry per year is I think the budget over on campus. There's a lot of things you could hear about the university. So if everybody's trying to send everything to everyone, I'm just going to unsubscribe from it all. And that's the thing. It's no different than if you think on a smaller scale, you want to segment your communications very strategically, because the more that you spray and pray emails, the more that you lose your email deliverability. Your score goes down. And so emails you think that they're going out are actually falling into spam folders for people that actually care about your cause, because you're sending to people who don't. So again, back to data collection, some of what we're doing with this is we're giving them a form, very similar to some of the more sophisticated companies that you see, that you can select, okay, if I'm going to work with REI, I'm interested in camping, but I'm not interested in running shoes. And I'm not interested in, so you get to pick and choose your own adventure, and you control your data. So I am a big proponent of giving that power back to the consumer. Not that, oh boy, we're exempt, so we're just going to shoot fish in a barrel over and over again because we can. That's got to stop. I mean, we can't be spammers. And it's a challenge with a lot of marketing departments because they want to see more eyes on that email. But honestly, when you're more strategic about it and you see better returns, and that's what we've seen through our own, we send out through a machine learning platform that allows us to track interests on click-throughs and such, so we can identify people's interests. So if it's, for example, if it's a vet med email, large animal, small animal, they're not the same people. Small animal people are not, they don't care about the cow or the llama, but the small animal, the puppy dog. So you could then identify where their interest is within a certain area. So, and then track that and then give them content they want, not just everything you think they want.
I think that you obviously hit on communications, and there are a lot of different ways to approach that nature of our work. You've talked about data and analysis and how these tools are likely to transform, or perhaps even have already started in some cases, transforming roles and responsibilities related to the handling of data in-house. What are other areas within advancement you see as sort of ripe for transformation? What departments or types of roles or skill sets is machine learning going to upend over the next year or few years?
Oh, yeah. It's upending all of it. So obviously there's plenty of things you see in the market today where, could we use a automated development officer or, obviously development officers should be able to use this to write better contact reports, to write better letters, introductions, etc. It makes your day-to-day. I mean, I use that stuff all the time. I need a simple outline for something. I need this. I need that. It's boom. Everybody can use that type of help in their day. It writes the best job. What was it? When I have to do review cycle, their reviews were maybe not as well worded as they could. Now they're beautiful, and so you can see where that's going to help them. Obviously, on the opposite side, which prospects do they need to see and right away, as opposed to here's my list of 150 people. I guess I'll pick these people today. That's a huge area for development officers. Now, another area, I'm going to switch over to, for example, stewardship. We're doing personalized stewardship videos using the machines. And those let us know how long, if somebody watched the whole thing or not. It creates a personalized experience. Video, when it's personalized, is huge. It does much better, performs much better than sending an email that says, "Dear Mark."
And you're creating your own platform, or are you using an external technology?
We're using a partner, a outsourced partner to help us that. They're Funmetric. They help us with these videos, but these videos tell us where they watched and when they stopped. And we also are adding things to it. So we're attaching forms that allow the form. So if you're a stewardship and you're a member of our 1868 Society, which is anyone who's made a donation of $100,000 or more, you get a welcome video now from Rachel Stark, who is the head of that group. And she introduces herself and welcomes them to the society, has them fill out a quick survey that then asks them how they like to be stewarded, what names do they like, all of that data. They're providing it to us. Are we going out and guessing? Are we trying to scrape this from somewhere? Back to getting the information from the people that want to engage with us. It's super critical, and it's not spooky or creepy when you ask them. It's spooky and creepy when you try to go find it, and all of a sudden you're saying, "Dear Larry," and he's like, "No one calls me Larry but my, my kids." You don't want that kind of experience. You want them to tell you how they want their experience, just like Amazon. In fact, we even we have an in-house data scientist. She developed we call it the Amazon model. So if you give to a certain area, these people also give to other things. So it gives us likes or chameleons. And then we also have it in the opposite direction. So it kind of creates the same. We use this for interdisciplinary programs because, the reality is just because they're the College of Education doesn't mean they want to give to the College of Education. But that's how we think in advancement. Well, they graduated, so they must only want to give to education. Well, people are interested in health. People are interested in a variety of things. And again, universities are a wealth of working on a variety of challenges. We're trying to solve problems for the world, and it's not just the College of Education. So really having that ability to understand someone's interest and apply them in a way that you weren't able to do before can increase the opportunities for you.
Mark, in our pre-show, you mentioned that you've changed some of the way that your own team is structured in some of the roles. And I think there's one in particular pretty interesting called Senior Director of Automation and Change Management. Could you talk about what inspired that role, and as well as just give us a little bit of lay of land of what your particular team looks like and how they're structured to keep up with this type of technology?
Thank you. Excellent question. And so, ever since we moved to the new CRM back in 2017, I have gone through transformations in my department at least every 2 years. So, because that technology, we wanted to change the work we do and such. So, the one position you're speaking of is an evolution of that process. So I didn't just wake up one day and say I wanted, somebody to do change management and automation. That job is actually, I am, well, he may hear this, but he knows. I'm probably looking at evolving his job again at another point, because really change management, project management, all of those components are components of innovation. And right now I have the chief innovation title, and his may blend into that more. But for him, what I didn't want was what happens with a lot of data science projects is we pretend that if we put a data scientist in a corner and let him spin straw into gold, we'll have this wonderful thing. Well, what happens is you put a data scientist there and they come up with some idea, but it just sits there. It doesn't get deployed. It doesn't get accepted into the organization. And this is about how innovation works in an organization. I'm a historian on this. Back in the wars, we had things like skunk works, you may have heard of, where an organization would take a team outside and have that team spin something out and then bring it back into the organization. Well, that was not as efficient as it could be, as in embedding it into your department and embedding it into your organization. And so that's the idea with this position. His role is to take the machine learning that we're doing and all of the different AI perspectives and deploy them. So I don't have a 10% usage of ChatGPT in the organization, that I have as I roll out more predictive models and such, that the individuals are actually absorbing the models and not just saying, that's great, I used it once and I never use it again. That is very common for us in our field. Sometimes we come up with a good idea, we do it once, and then we never go back to it. Again, that constant iteration of what we have is critical to this, because if you don't build upon it, a push button AI, it's not hitting a button. It's actually like mindfulness. It's muscle memory. The more you do these things, the better you get at them, and the more deployment you'll get for them, the more value you'll get out of spending money to develop those things.
As higher ed continues to go through the daily disruption that it's experiencing, and what will likely prompt further innovation and necessary change, painful or not for many, could you talk to some of the skills that will be useful in sort of the emerging over the next couple of years, what advancement evolves into?
Well, I think it's really critical to ensure your current state of your staff are evolving their skill sets. I talk with a lot of shops. I see a lot of people that have very dated technological backgrounds because, again, of legacy applications. They're the one person that knows how to do that weird customization, and they're only there because of that weird customization, and nobody can unbuild that watch because nobody remembers. Well, making sure your staff is staying up to date on their certifications, their credentialing, their knowledge. Again, I have a background in adult education, so anything I can do to help adults, and really the background, the study area was helping adults learn technology, because technology was going to start leapfrogging. I already had seen this. Moore's Law is gone. So what do we do? Because the workforce isn't used to that kind of change. And we're seeing the real friction now of people going, I'm not going to do this. It's going to take my job. It's not going to take our jobs. It's augmented intelligence. We're going to be working alongside it. It's like a lab partner. Jensen Wong said this recently. It's like a lab partner you have with you. And you want to go to your lab partner and, hey, what do we do with this? And that's supportive. It's not replacing. And the reality, as we all know in higher education, we've got the enrollment decline cliff that everybody keeps talking about. We're going to have fewer students. But that's not just for higher education. That's for the whole world. We're having fewer people. So there's not going to be where people get upset, oh, where are all the waiters? I can't get service. There's not people to do the jobs. So we're going to have a crunch finding these. So I encourage my staff. I have professional development talks with them at least once a quarter, if not more. I'm constantly encouraging them to do things. And it's not go to a conference sometimes. Sometimes it's go learn something. So one of the things we did with our former research department, which we got rid of research in the old model, we have two departments now. We have relationship insights and we have pipeline development. Pipeline development is a for-profit model. They make sure that we have a strong pools. They're the ones that listen to the signals and the noise, as I call it, of things that people do. And that feeds the algorithms that tell them that they're ready to go into a portfolio. So as you're starting to think about those different opportunities, you want them to be engaged and active in it. And sometimes it's hard. I won't say a lot of people, sometimes they just want to do what they've been doing. But I think that that's going to be the challenge going forward for all of us is how do we keep up with the changing needs and such of our roles and positions.
So for senior advancement leaders who don't have a technology background, but are starting to increasingly understand the importance of driving change with it, what's some advice you'd give them? What are resources they could go to? Who are people they could speak to? To your point earlier in this show, I think there's tremendous value to be found outside of higher education, seeing what you can bring back and apply. Give me a little bit of a starting playbook for a senior advancement leader who is behind on doing some work they need to catch up on.
Okay, very quickly, networking is key. Second one is actually have a voracious appetite for knowledge. That means go look at the journals, look at what's going on in the industries, just ours. Collect that information. There's a wealth of information out there on all of these topics. Frankly, you can chat GPT a lot of this now too, which is kind of funny. I could throw this in the chat GPT and come up with a more salient answer than I could probably give you. But for me, with the real big kicks were, I started for change management. I followed McKinsey and Company, and they do an excellent like summation over the years of different topics of interest in the technology realm. And they had a whole thing back in 2017, 18 on called Changing Change Management. It's still, everything in it still holds true today. You often find it doesn't have to be the most fresh thing that you've ever seen, but those nuggets are in there. And so not everything will apply to you either. There are things in your culture that is important in your organization that you may want to forego this and do this instead. And really spending that time. I probably spend about 10% of my daily, if I were to chunk up my job, I have to do that. Otherwise, I can't be innovative. I leave this up on my wall here, which is from the CEO of Microsoft. Not ever thinking that there is some birthright that we will be around in 20 years from now is the only thing that's going to keep us around 20 years from now. Once you're an innovator, it's hard to keep innovating.
Well, Mark, this has been a fantastic conversation. I know our audience is going to get tremendous value out of it. So I want to ask you one final question before I do a little bit of a wrap up here. But if you could look forward 3, maybe 5 years from now and hope to see something come to fruition for our field, our discipline, what would that be?
Boy, that's a big one. I think to the commentary I talked about the number of people being able in the workforce shrinking, I think we're going to have to find efficiencies in areas that have been inefficient for decades in our industry. Gift administration. That is ripe for disruption. Research is ripe for disruption, as I've already talked about. I don't have a research department anymore. I have higher value deliverables in these two other units than regurgitating information that ChatGPT could give me. I think you're going to see the sales piece. Relationships are relational. It's stupid, but it is true. I want to talk to you as a person. I don't want to talk to a bot. Who likes picking up the phone and dealing with Verizon when you want to get tech support? Nobody. And yeah, it's easy for Verizon, but if we're in a business relationship and ultimately it's a sales relationship, I know that's sometimes verboten in the philanthropy world, but it is that connection between you and the customer that makes the sale. It's not a robot. It's not a cool form. They help for the transactional pieces, but we're a real big, to get a principal gift, it's a long relationship. And so things for the development officer is really how do they manage those relationships easier at scale. And I didn't get a chance to talk about, for example, our donor experience officers that we co-created with Evertrue back in the day, almost 6 years ago now. These are positions that were modeled after the New York Yankees ticket sales and the Four Seasons concierge program. So it was meant for donors who gave at a level where our stewardship department couldn't get to them. And so how did we do this? We created a position that gets 1,000-person portfolio. And they work with those individuals using the data that they have, the predictive analytics, and they work with these people to get them to renew at a greater level. And they manage a portfolio of these 1,000 people, and they do it at scale, whereas a development officer would never be able to do that kind of work. And so one of my other big proponents is looking at our organizations and recognizing in development, not everyone's a closer. You need to have, like a modern sales organization, you have openers. You have those people that work the middle. You have very different roles throughout, and really leveraging technology to make them as successful as possible.
Thank you so much, Mark, for sharing your experience, your insights, and guidance. And thank you to all of our listeners, whether you've joined 1, 2, or all 5 of our episodes in this mini-series. This concludes the AI for IA pulse check, but the conversation doesn't end here. I know Enrollify is actively exploring some more advancement-focused content to continue to support the work that we do. So stay tuned, and thank you again for following along on this journey into the future of advancement.
This Pulse Check mini-series has been brought to you by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.